Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. My name is Maria KOROLOV, and I'm the editor here at MetaStellar. And I'm here to talk about the #1 best-selling free speculative fiction book on Amazon today, an epic fantasy billed as a cross between Game of Thrones and Spartacus by a USA Today best-selling author, and it's free. But before we get to that, we have 9 other books to get through on today's top 10 list. You see, every Friday, the team here at MetaStellar reads the first few chapters of every sci-fi and fantasy book on Amazon's top 10 free list. MetaStellar editors Alex KOROLOV and Terrence Smith and community member ROMEL MADRAY helped me out today. And Terrence and Rommel are here with me now. Welcome, guys. Hi.
Hi, Maria. Hi, Terrence.
Oh, for those who don't know, Rommel is based on a tropical island in the Caribbean. And Terrence and I are here in Western Massachusetts being snowed in right now. So, Rommel, I personally am very, very jealous of you. Maybe
you'll come for Carnival. Yeah.
Maybe on one of these shows you can tape on the beach. Can you do that? Can you take your computer?
Yeah, once it's one.
All right.
I don't. It's salty.
That's true. It is salty.
So
probably not good for computers.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, MetaStellar is an online magazine of speculative fiction. We publish original science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Submit. Our next submission cycle is in March, and we do pay 8 cents a word for original fiction. And we also print reprints, essays, excerpts, and lots of book reviews. And we have our anthologies out in all the major bookstores in print and electronic form. All the links are down below to the anthology, to the Free Friday articles, to the Amazon bestseller list, to our Patreon support page. So that's how we exist, because everything is free to our readers. So scroll down into the description and check it all out. All right, so let's get started with book number 10 on today's list. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. And let me pull up the cover so you can look at it. There you go. A Charming Crime by Tonya Kappes. This is the first of 13 books in the Magical Cures Cozy Mystery series. The other books are $6 each, but the entire series is in Kindle Unlimited. For those who don't know, Kindle Unlimited is like a Netflix for books. You pay $10 a month and you read all the books you want, as long as those books are in Kindle Unlimited. But a lot of books are, including a lot of bestsellers, and like the Harry Potter books are in it. It's a really, really great deal if you read a lot. If you read more than 2 or 3 books a month, you should definitely have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. I do, so I'm always on the lookout for books that are in the Kindle Unlimited system, because it means I don't have to pay to read them. So I appreciate this very much. I read the beginning of this book because I'm a fan of magical cozy mysteries, and this is a magical cozy mystery. And the protagonist is June, who lives in a small town, and she makes a living making homeopathic medicines. She inherited the business from her mother, who died of a heart attack. Or did she? Maybe it wasn't the real heart attack. June's childhood best friend, Oscar, is now a police officer in the same small town, and he's grown into a very hunky guy. She also has a cat with a mysterious ability to show up in places it's not supposed to be, although that could just be normal cat behavior. Oh, and she also has a habit of blowing up her work shed when she works on her medicines, which was a little bit confusing because I don't usually think of herbal medicines as being particularly explosive, but there's a story behind that as well. So after her latest explosion, Oscar is there because the fire department's been called to put out the fire, and he tells June that he's found another town that he's never heard of before, that's only 30 minutes away, and he's considering taking a police job there. And there's a shop in that town that wants to sell her remedies. And June's never heard of this town either, which is kind of weird. It's 30 minutes away. I know all the towns within a 30-minute drive of where I live. So that's kind of odd. And they don't seem to act like it's odd. maybe there's something about the town that makes people not think that's odd to not know it. Anyway, so she goes to this town, and she goes to that shop that wants to sell her stuff, and the shop sells snow globes, or maybe they're crystal balls. And a face appears in one of them and tells her that she's in danger, because of course it does. And then she's invited to come live in this town and open a shop there. And in fact, there's a vacant storefront in this town, and the storefront has her mother's name on it, because June starts to remember they used to live there when she was a little kid. So they moved away when June was very young. Normally, I'd be all over a story like this. A woman moves to a small town, discovers she has magical powers, her cat is some kind of magical familiar, she has to solve a murder, all while romancing a handsome cop. I mean, this like rings all the bells. And the writing is light and breezy, and in theory, it should be a welcome diversion on a dreary, snowy winter weekend like we're having here today. But maybe I've read a few too many books of this type, and I'm all magical cozied out. So I don't know. There are a lot of books in this series. They are in Kindle Unlimited, so I'm gonna keep it on my to-read shelf, because I definitely expect to be in the mood for a nice cozy mystery sooner rather than later. But I'm not gonna be sticking with it right now because I'm just not in the mood for it. Nothing wrong with the book. Although it does kind of feel a little repetitive, but you know, when you like something, you like seeing more of that same thing. So I don't know, just my mood, I guess. Next, we have a book that Alex read, Slaves of the Sword and Wand by Joel Newton, the first of what will be the Songs of the Sword and Wand fantasy series. And the book is normally $15, but today it's free. So Alex recommends it to fans of military fantasy. Dunstan has been an indentured soldier in the army since he was found as an orphan when he was 7 years old. And now he's 37, and he's done his 30 years in the army, and in theory, he should be free to go. And he goes to a local ruler to petition for his freedom, but things go wrong, and Dunstan winds up killing some soldiers, rescuing a witch, and now has to escape from this lord and some soldiers that are coming for him. And now all that happens in chapter 1. Alex says he likes this book, he plans to finish it, it's a fun plot, and it's definitely not light on the action. And he likes the fact that Dunstan is an older, experienced military guy instead of some young guy, like what often happens in fantasy stories. All right, next we have Silver Spells by Kate Moseman, the first of 4 books in the Midlife Elementals Urban Fantasy series. The other books are $1 to $4 each, and they're all in Kindle Unlimited. This is the 3rd time this book has been on this list, so it's pretty popular. And I do like cozy magical mysteries, as I mentioned before. So in this book, Luella is a social media manager at a sunscreen factory. Her daughter's just gone away to college, and she gets fired with no explanation or nothing. And as she's picking up her stuff, a strange white dog runs into the building and runs out again. And only Luella and her 2 best friends can see the dog. And her boyfriend says it's her own fault that she got fired, and so she dumps him on the spot. Good for her. So now she's living in an apartment that she can't afford, with college bills that she can't afford to pay. So when someone offers her to live rent-free house sitting, she takes the gig. And then there's weird stuff piling up. There's a whole bunch of magical stuff happening to Luella and her friends. And the setting is in Florida, so I was enjoying that very much. I got 7 chapters into the book before I put it down when I was reviewing it, and I don't think I went back to it, but I was planning to, and I still might. Like I said, if I'm in a mood for something cozy, magical, and light, this is the kind of book I would definitely stick with. Next, we have another book that Alex read, Apache Jack by Brent Reilly, the first of 3 books in the Apache Jack series, which are part of a 21-book fun monster thrillers series. And usually each book is $5, but today the entire series is free. None of the books are in Kindle Unlimited. So if you like this author style, snap up all his books. So most of the books in this series are about monsters, like fantasy kind of monsters. This particular book is not, Alex says. So from what he's read so far of the book, it's a Western set in the year 1843 in New Mexico. Jack Miller and his family are passing through. They're surveying a path from the railroad from El Paso, Texas to Yuma, Arizona. And this is a time when Texas is at war in Mexico, and there's local Native American tribes who are a threat to travelers. Miller's got his 2 brothers with him, and his brothers have each brought 2 sons. So there's a pretty good sized crew of them. Alex says that he read the first 2 chapters and it was like part history lesson, part story. And there's a really lengthy section talking about the history of the Colt repeating rifle. But Alex says he did find it interesting. And there's a tense interaction with some Mexicans, which leads to some shooting, and ends with Jack owning a gold mine. So Alex does like historical fiction in general, and he says that Apache Jack is a fun storyline and lots of interesting historical information, and he plans to keep reading. But so far, he hasn't seen any signs of spaceships or wizards or anything like that. Next we have the Dragon Misfits by D.K. Holmberg, and Terrence read this one. This is a box set of the first 3 books of the Dragon Misfits, which is a 6-book coming-of-age fantasy series. Normally, the books are $4 to $5 each, but the entire series is in Kindle Unlimited. D.K. Holmberg is a regular on this list. We have reviewed a lot of his books, and I have liked others of his books. So, Terrence, let me pull you up. What did you think of this book? And you're on mute.
And now I am not on mute. Well, as far as stories like this go, I think this is one of the better ones I've taken a look at recently. I like the setting of this cold village on the mountainside. It kind of reminds me a little bit of DreamWorks How to Train Your Dragon movies, because of course there's going to be dragons involved, and the protagonist is this scrawny kid who's a bit of a misfit and an outsider. And I will say that I am a little bit intrigued by the setup for this story. The kid's dad was killed by a dragon about a year ago, but nobody seems to believe him because dragons haven't been seen for at least 100 years in this area. So now I'm curious as to why they haven't been seen for a while. Like, why does this one dragon show up at this point? And the village has this annual festival celebrating their freedom from what I ascertained was this great dragon war. So I like that the village has its own culture and customs that makes it feel more like real setting as opposed to just like random knights and dragons and elves and all that stuff. So me, if I didn't have 1,000 other books to read, I would probably go into this little bit more.
So I read the beginning of this book as well. And so the only thing I would add to Terrence's description is that Jason and his family are like hungry, and his mother is sick, and the book starts out with him trying to catch a rabbit with his bow in the woods, and it's cold and there's snow, and he can't catch anything, so he comes home hungry, and there's nothing to feed his mom and his sister, and then all the other kids make fun of him. So to me, this was like a really sad and gloomy beginning. So
yeah,
I wouldn't. So it's definitely readable. And I might stick with it because I like the author, and I trust that the book is going to be a very interesting read. But it is a pretty gloomy beginning. So if you're looking for something cheerful and full of like rah action, like right from the start, it's kind of a slow, sad start. And of course, the kid's dad is dead.
yeah, burnt to a crisp.
Yeah.
Brutal way to go.
All right. Next, we have a book that Rommel read, Shiftless by Aimee Easterling. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you guys. There you go. The first of 3 books in the Wolf Rampant Urban Fantasy series. The other books are $5 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. And the author has been on this list a couple of times before. All right, Rommel, what did you think of this book?
The book is a very procedural book. In terms of basically, I'll just go through the basic storyline that I read so on it. There's this lady who's an unnamed person who's taking some time in a bookstore, and basically she gets whiff of another werewolf, and she runs out into a car park. The other werewolf says, "Hello, listen, you're hot," and she thinks he's hot, and then she runs away back to her apartment.
Sounds
Then
like the start of every paranormal romance ever.
I mean, but she hasn't had. It sounds like she hasn't had a date in 10 years. So I mean, how it goes. Apparently, there are no other werewolves or men available. Anyway, she goes home. She has a job at the national park. She has to find a toddler who's lost himself there. She finds a child. Some random guy shoots her in the shoulder, but it's just grazed her, so it's nothing. Just a flesh wound.
It's just a flesh wound.
As they say in Predator, what's the guy, Jesse Ventura? I'm too old to bleed. No, I'm too busy to bleed. So probably that's it. Anyway, she's gung ho. She doesn't worry about shrapnel or armaments. Anyway, then the next she goes into a hike. Her father apparently finds her on this hike again in the forest. He is an amazing tracker to find someone in a forest by herself. So he's found her, and she tells her that his sister. He tells the unnamed daughter that his sister is dead, and her father wants an heir, and it's either that she gets his sister's nephew as the heir, or she gets pregnant and marries off and produces an heir. But either way, he wants an heir to my kingdom of wolves. Long live the North. Anyway, so that's his ultimatum to her. This book was the world built, I think if you're familiar with the world that this author has built, you'll be able to pick it up easier. But for someone who's not familiar with the world that's built there, or the characters, it's a challenging read because there's a lot of backstory that's not told. And when it is told, it brings you, it shifts you from that forward momentum of the story to a backward momentum of the story.
I think
So
what's happening there, Rommel, is that the book refers to a whole bunch of very common werewolf story tropes.
Yeah.
That the readers who like this genre have
Yeah.
read a lot of books of this type, and just a word or two is enough to let them know what universe they're in, what's happening, what the rules are, everything. And it sounds from what you say that this is one of those male-dominated wolf pack situations where, you know, everything's very hierarchical and very controlled. I personally do not like that trope at all. There's no such thing as an alpha wolf. Wolves tend to be a lot more egalitarian. The alpha wolf myth has been debunked so many times by biologists.
Yeah, I called bull on that.
They are so annoyed by it. There's no such thing as an alpha wolf. There's parent wolves and children wolves, and the parents boss the children around. And so when they actually observe the packs, that's what happens, because the packs are usually family groups, and the parents boss the kids. It's not like some wolves are born to be alphas and some wolves are born to be betas. And I hate it when that comes up. But anyway,
well, it's a familiar trope, but there is a lot of, for someone who's not familiar with the genre, I think you need to have that precondition to be able to understand when it's just a word that they're saying, because that word reference is like an index card. That index that author puts references a whole bunch of information which they assume you know.
Yeah. So I've got some homework for you, Rommel. So read a bunch of these books. Like, read a whole bunch of werewolf books from the beginning to end, and a bunch of vampire romance books. Start with Twilight.
Oh Christ, no, sorry.
Yes, if you're going to be reviewing these books,
do
start
not
right out
speak
with
of Twilight. Oh, fun fact, 50 Shades of Grey started as a Twilight fan fiction.
Yes, and read 50 Shades next. And it's
no, do not read 50 Shades of Grey. Rommel, ignore everything this crazy woman is saying.
I'll read the Bible. That's what I'll read.
If you care about this genre, and if you want to write in this genre or be a book reviewer in this genre, you really should know Twilight and its tropes and 50 Shades of Grey and its tropes. I would also recommend reading the Anita Blake books. Those are a lot of fun and very, very sexy.
But the other thing with some of these books, I mean, anyway, I mean, I've watched a fair bit of werewolf movies. I mean, I was a teenager once, you know, like, okay, free the werewolves or whatever, you know, from the vampires and all of these things.
Different genre. Paranormal Romance is a different genre from the werewolf movies you watched as a kid. Very different genre. The tropes are completely different. The motifs are different. The character development is very different. The themes that are relevant in these books tend to be a relationship-based themes, rather than themes about man versus nature or human identity themes, which you might get in the older kind of werewolf books.
Yeah, Frankenstein.
Yeah, so the older books are, you know, what makes a man, and, you know, man versus nature and all that kind of thing. The current books are romance books, and their theme is relationship dynamics and pack dynamics and pack politics and drama. So it's a way to explore the dynamics of hierarchical social structures with a fantasy themed elements. And it's very interesting. So if you read it from that perspective,
like a sociological book.
Yes, you can read it like that, yeah. Or you can read it as a fun, sexy book, with a little bit of power play dynamics going on, because sometimes people like that. It feels romantic and sexy when there's power play issues going on in a romance that people don't want to have in real life. These are not things people actually want to do in real life. But it's fun in a romance. Just like it's fun to watch James Bond kill people, but we don't want to kill people in real life. We don't want to get shot at in real life, but it's fun to watch. It's fun to imagine as kind of a break from our daily life. So, and it's a way to kind of deal with your inner demons, maybe. So for women, the power dynamics are one of these like inner demon kind of issues and I think that's one of the reasons why they play out so much in the paranormal fantasy books right now.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see this character being probably weak and then later on developed into a strong personality based on a conflict. I assume, and then there will be a romance that blooms and she rediscovers that or something. So
Yep. So now, Terrence, you read this book as well, right? What did you think?
I think it was it is kind of one of those kind of like trashy books, but it seems like the fun kind of trashy book, if that makes that
Trashy in a
any
good
sense.
way. Totally,
Yeah.
respectful. Yes.
Yeah, the guy that approaches the protagonist, I just thought of some generic white hunk from a Hallmark movie. And you can pet the wolf. 10 out of 10, book of the year. Okay. I mean, it just seems like I didn't get that far into it, but I don't know. There's just kind of silly appeal about these kinds of stories.
I used to read a lot of them back when there was more action, less romance. And as they started to shift away, less action and more romance, I kind of started, I'm not a touchy-feely kind of person. So I don't like the mushy stuff. So I started reading less of them. But I've probably read, I don't know, probably easily a couple of hundred urban fantasy books. So so I definitely know the genre. But yeah, it's not the tropes that are coming up now on the romance version of these books, I'm not a big fan of. But I can see why people are.
One of the things that gets me with this book was that sometimes the continuity of something. There's like, okay, she finds this hunky guy finds her, and that is probably going to be the central theme of the book, and then she runs away, and for a good portion of the book she doesn't think of him, and I know that guy is going to be introduced back as some kind of character.
That's a common romance trope, that kind of push pull, encounter back away kind of situation.
Yeah, but then I forget about him. Like for a whole couple chapters, he's not there. And it's like, wait, you're back here? What? Where were you all the time? What? You're supposed to be the love of my life, and you left for like, it's like you're supposed to be the love of my life, and you left me for 70 years, and now I'm back.
Well, I guess absence makes the heart grow fonder. All right, let's move on to book number 4, The Hunted by A.J. Scudiere. The first of 5 books in the Black Carbon sci-fi dystopian thriller series. The other books are $5 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. The 5th book is scheduled to be released later on this month. We reviewed it before in February of last year, in 2022. And then in August, we also reviewed another one of his books. So this author has been on this list before. Alex read this one. Oh, let me make it a little bit bigger for you guys. There you go, so you can see it. So Alex read this one, and he says this book is full of mythical beasts, horror stories, and heart-pounding life-or-death excitement. And it starts out with Jewel running from a pack of hellhounds. And these hellhounds are really good at killing people, and they don't stop once they have your scent. She makes it to a house, but the hounds break into the house after her. And Alex says he loves this beginning. This woman is on the run from the supernatural beasts, moments away from being torn apart. He was on his verge of his seat, and he wants to know what's going to happen with this book. So that's a plus, a thumbs up from him. But he also likes horror books. So me, not so much. I would stay away from something like this. And also, it's a dystopian thriller. So Alex likes those. So if you like dystopian thrillers, check it out. It's free. All right, next we have a book that I read. And I didn't just read this book. I read a bunch of other books in this series because I liked it so much. Now, you can't tell by the covers. The covers look handmade. And the author really should fix the covers. I'm very disappointed in him because the books are good. They should have the standard stereotypical sci-fi spaceship book cover. I think they would do really, really well. So this particular book here is a box set of the first three books in the Wanderer's Odyssey series. And the whole series has 8 books in it. The other books are $4 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. And I paid my own money to read the other books in this series because I liked it so much. So the story is about Jess, who is born a slave and has never set foot on a planet's surface. His captors use him and other prisoners as cannon fodder. And they send him into a mystery spaceship to look for booby traps. But something in that spaceship mysteriously frees him and 2 fellow prisoners from their control collars, and they're able to use the ship to escape. And Jess starts out as a pretty passive character, which is only to be expected. He has been a slave for his whole life, and things just happen around him through no particular effort of his own. And I do like my main characters to have a little bit more agency, but that does get better through the course of the book. There's a powerful and evil empire, and after escaping from their captors, Jess and his companions pick up a distress signal and save a family of strugglers from the empire's enforcers, and they blow up one of the empire's ships in the process. Meanwhile, it turns out that the ship they stole has extremely advanced capabilities and is powered by an AI that can do nearly anything, and it was just sitting around there waiting for someone to tell it what to do. It's a hokey premise, but I liked it, and I kept reading. And I kept reading several of the books of the series, and like I said, paying money for them. And there's a few places in the series where the main character does things out of stupidity, like too dumb to live kind of situations, which is fine. He's young, he's new to all this, he's been a slave his whole life. But he does have people around him who can give him better advice. As well as the AI that can give him some advice, and maybe that would help. But a lot of best-selling series have the too stupid to live problem in order to keep the plot moving. So I kind of look past that. Overall, very, very enjoyable space opera. And like I said, I paid real money to read the later books in this series, so I recommend it highly. Next, we have Hunting Season by Kate Rudolph, the first of 4 books in the Guarded by the Shifter Paranormal Romance series. The other books are $1 to $5 each, and they are not in Kindle Unlimited. And this is the second time this book has been on this list. So, as I've mentioned before, I am a little prejudiced against these kind of books. I don't like romance. I don't like bare naked male chests on book covers. It feels too much like Twilight to me. I did not like Twilight. Yes, I read the books. Yes, I watched all the movies, but I did not enjoy it. No. But I took on the task of reading the beginning of this book anyway. So the story is about Stasia, and her father's new wife is 10 years younger than she is. And her dad wants her to come to a birthday party for her 9th step-sibling, and she'd rather not go. And she's a little sorry she moved back to New York, where there's too much family for comfort. Her family, by the way, is obscenely wealthy. They've got a jet and a fleet of cars, and Stasia herself has an inheritance that she prefers not to touch. Then, while she's walking down the street, talking on the phone with her dad, someone tries to kidnap her right in broad daylight, right in front of witnesses. She fights back. The bystanders help. And I like her. She's competent and calm and collected in a crisis, which makes sense because she works in an emergency room. And then we switch to a different point of view in the next chapter. Owen is a werewolf and an army vet, and his unit all got turned into werewolves and were kicked out of the army 2 years ago and started a security company. They're just getting started, so they mostly take on small bodyguarding jobs, and they get a job to guard the heiress. So I assume that they're going to be guarding Stasia. So I like the beginning of this book. I mean, I know what I said about the cover and the romance and everything, but there's plenty of action. I like both main characters, and I might stick with it. Moving on, we have Kingdoms of Sand by Daniel Arenson, and this is the book that's
I hate sand.
This is the book that's billed as a cross between Game of Thrones and Spartacus. It's the first, it's a box set, and you get 3 books. And the series Kingdoms of Sand has 6 books in it, and it's an epic fantasy. The books are normally $3 to $5 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. So you're getting a really good deal here. And Daniel Arenson has been on our list before. We've reviewed others of his books, and this particular book set was also on this Free Friday list last week. It was in 10th place last week, and it's moved up to 1st place. So if you didn't check it out from our recommendation last week, you should definitely pick it up now. So, and the author's a USA Today bestseller. So if you like epic fantasy, and you like Spartacus, and you like Game of Thrones, pick it up. I do not like Game of Thrones or Spartacus. They're a little too grim for me. And then the Game of Thrones in particular, there's too many characters to keep track of. I've got a bad memory for names. And that's a problem. Both of those things are a problem in this book. It's a little too grim for me, and there's too many people. So we start out with Maya, a young woman with magic powers and an evil older sister. The older sister is a product of rape. Their mother has been attacked by invaders. And the older sister actually is on the side of the invaders. She thinks that the invaders, who are from a big evil empire, are really cool, and she wants to find her real dad and her real family and join them. And she thinks that the little kingdom where she lives is just like a nothing provincial little town, and she's sick of her family and she's sick of the place where she lives. And then Maya herself seems to be one of those too stupid to live people. She knows that magic is forbidden, but she still uses it to heal a sick dog, which the invading prince immediately kills. So it was a waste of her magic. She doesn't check if anyone's watching. So she's a nice person, but I don't think she's gonna do well in this world, because this world is pretty cruel. Meanwhile, Ophir, the evil sister, really liked the fact that this invading prince just killed that dog, and she hooks up with him. Right there in front of the soldiers.
The dog, dishonor on him, dishonor on his cow.
And her little sister, she takes the prince into a cave, and they do the thing. Like, really. Then there's another one.
Hold on. This guy kills a dog, and so the princess goes to make out with him.
Yes, Ophir, the evil sister,
what?
goes and makes out with him.
What's this thing in these books now? Not this particular book only, but like a couple series ago, I heard there were dog killings as well. Now I understand you gotta kill some humans, but why kill? What did the dog ever do to you?
Yes, dogs have nothing to you. They are good boys.
Prince just shows up. The invading fleet has just pulled into this little country, and he's wandering around with his soldiers. He sees this poor little dog and just shoots it, kills it. Like, what? So then we switch to the point of view of another one of Maya's siblings, an older brother who's in line to inherit the kingdom. He's a little worried about the enemy fleet that just showed up, and he's bickering with two more siblings. This is a very large family. And one of his other siblings is a sister who's a fighter, and she wants to kill everybody with no thought of consequences. And then another sibling is a brother who just likes to drink and have a good time, also with no thought of consequences. So Effer is the only one of the lot who seems to have any common sense, and he's burdened by the guilt of hearing his mother's screams as she was raped by the invaders when they were here last time. So he's carrying some weight on his shoulder. So everybody's got these painful backstories. It's a grim beginning. I don't like any of these characters, although I sympathize with the older brother because I'm the oldest, But yeah. So and then it gets worse. Well, from my perspective, we switch to the point of view of Marcus, the evil emperor of the invading empire. He's got 10,000 slaves marching to their doom, prisoners being crucified right and left, all the horrible excesses of Rome. And we also learned that the country that Maya is from is a place where people get circumcised. So I'm guessing this is an allegory for the story of Israel in Roman times. And so I'm not personally opposed to the setting. I've read other speculative fiction books set in historic Rome or in similar cultures, and I like them. But this particular series is a little too grim and depressing for me. There's just horrible suffering in every direction. And in my escapist reading, I prefer to be either a lighter tone or more fun action as opposed to grim, depressing action. So I am not going to stick with it. But if you like your epic fantasy on the grim side, and a lot of people do, like I said, this feels very much Game of Thrones-ish, then the writing style is very compelling and it definitely pulls you in. And the story moves along at a very good, solid clip. Lots of tension and high stakes right from the start. And the characters are all very well defined and very vivid. And the world building is excellent. You really feel like you're in the middle there. So if you like that kind of thing, pick it up while the books are free. And you get 3 books. So yeah, so that was our list for today. So before we go, I want to thank our Patreon supporters, including Terrence. Thanks, Terrence. We exist because of our Patreon supporters, and all donations go to pay for original fiction. If you want to join us, if you want to write for us or do reviews for us or join us on the YouTube channel, or just comment or suggest books for us to read, comment in the description box below, and my email is down there as well. So feel free to contact me for any reason. All right, I hope you guys have a great 2023, and I'll see you all next Friday. Bye, everybody. Bye, Terrence. Bye, Rommel.
Bye. Take care.